Yes, all over.
All over.
Yes, no pressure. How you doing today?
Yeah, good. Excited.
Good, you got the premiere tonight.
Got the premiere. My kids are all down there getting spruced up in their DJs and sparkly tights.
Yeah,
so,
right.
yeah, it's exciting.
A royal premiere
Oh,
as well.
yeah. Wow, can you
I know,
believe
it's quite
it?
nuts, isn't it? Yeah. Okay, to start off with, were you apprehensive at all at taking on such an iconic role? I mean, I know obviously it's not your role, but an iconic person to make a film
I
about.
said no at first.
Did you?
Because, I mean, it was a huge honour to be asked to even consider it. You know, I'm from Manchester, I'm not from South Africa. And I just made this little film in Kenya about, with real people and non-actors. And I read a couple of the scripts and they were very, very... And I'd read the book, which was a huge, sprawling history. I mean, it's his life represents some of the most turbulent, well-documented periods of history in modern culture, in modern times. And so I couldn't see a way in at first in terms of the screenplay or in terms of the biography. It would have made a brilliant miniseries, and then you'd have to leave stuff out. But I think it was then going to South Africa with this little film and showing it in South Africa, and the producer of Mandela had invited the family and the comrades and some of the men and women that were part of the story to that screening, and then just talking to them. That then I saw there might be a way in to make it a personal story about the cost to the man and the cost to him as a dad and the cost to him as a husband and the cost to Winnie. And there might be another way of telling this story through the prism of a relationship. We'd have the arc of the apartheid history that his life represents, but it could be a story about love and forgiveness at the same time. And that felt compelling. And that certainly unlocked it for Bill Nicholson and I, in terms of he'd been trying to, with various other people, trying to kind of get the screenplay right, but then looking at it through that prism unlocked it for us, and that became the kind of centre and heart of what we were trying to do.
You can't believe that it actually went on in our lifetime, really, can you, the whole apartheid thing? And it does surprise me, and it was an interesting viewing, just seeing it sort of laid out in front of you. Did you learn anything along the way?
Well, I was constantly surprised. I am still now. I mean, I went to South Africa to show the film to the comrades and the family and men and women that had helped us 3 weeks ago, and took my family into the Apartheid Museum. And my kids were shocked that it's so recent, this history. Really, I mean, it's so recent. That pernicious evil of racism, how that descent into complete and utter madness. I mean, it was mad. I hadn't... So I was aware, obviously, of apartheid and what was happening in South Africa as a student and as a young kid at school. But then that period when he was in his 70s of what that country was going through, it really was teetering on the edge of a bloodbath. And in his 70s, this man has to come out of prison after doing 27 years and has the biggest job, and against his wife, against his comrades, against the men that were close to him, had been with him for 27 years, to say, no, we're not going to go down that road, we're going to do this. How he was able to do it, I think it must be the only example in history of a man that was able, helped by lots of other men and women as well, but his way through that peacefully to make that transition is unbelievable that happened in our lifetime. And the fact that he lives now and is one of those great leaders from now that's not corrupted by the media or corrupted by self-gain. No, every day I'd learn something from Mandela. Every day I'd be inspired by what people actually had gone through.
It's an incredible life and very eventful. So, I mean, how did you, as a director, choose the bits that you put in, and you obviously you must have had to leave some of it out because you can't fit it all into that length of time.
But it was having that central love story, and then that love story that was then shattered by events and shattered by a government. Winnie Mandela. There's this perception about Winnie Mandela about that we've got from the Western press, and Winnie Mandela was a young woman, 23-year-old woman who had children, bright, beautiful, articulate, energetic woman who had hopes and dreams for her children and for her country and her people, who was abused at the hands of the government, 17-month stretches in solitary confinement, not knowing where her children were. So the screenplay really constantly was evolving because of these, not only the backbone of the book that Mandela wrote, but also these stories from the jailers or from an interrogator. I mean, I was with the chap that ties his shoelace before he goes and meets the clerk, and I was with an interrogator. I was taken to Pollsmoor prison by Christo Brandt, the jailer at the time. So though it was always going back to the central story, the cost to the man, the stuff that was going on behind closed doors, the stuff that was happening in Victor Verster, just before he was left the prison, was a story that I'd heard while I was there in Victor Verster on the first time I went there, by a young guard who said, I was watching it with my group of mates in college. We were all wondering what Mandela looked like and why he was taking so long. And this chap, who was a young chap at the time, who was in the room with all his family there, said, well, he was waiting for Winnie. He was waiting for Winnie, and she was late, and he would not, even though the relationship was broken, he would not walk out without her by his side, hand in hand. And for me, was, okay, that's what we, in this film, that's what we do. Because you can go out and watch documentaries, read great books on apartheid, but as the cost to the man and the cost to the woman and the cost to them and their families was the catalyst of the film, and that's why we made it, was to show Mandela as a man and as a rounded, full man.
Have you got to meet him at all?
Yeah, I met him just before I started filming, which was amazing.
And what impression did you get of him, and what sort of man is he?
He was just before his 94th birthday, so it's just over a year ago that I met him, and it was just before I started filming. And everybody taught. By that point, I met a lot of people that knew him intimately as a young man and knew him from the old days, and people that had known him, and I'd met his wife and his children, and people talk about the Madiba effect, the effect he has on a stadium when he walks into a stadium that can just go up. For me, it was like electricity that comes off it. I mean, the warmth of him, the humour, the intelligence. I mean, we took him an iPad with all these images and photographs of his life. He knew every single person in there. He was sharp. He knew the date. He knew. I mean, how he did. I mean, I can't remember photographs like 5 years ago. Where was that again? But he knew every single thing, and he had such a kind of warmth about him, and it was a brilliant afternoon. I mean, brilliant, inspiring afternoon. And he looked at this one image of this kid that was twisting his nose and pulling a face, and I used it in the film actually. And he just turned to me and he went, he knew. He saw me just as the man. Just the man. And he looked straight at me as I was doing it. I was thinking, you know what? He doesn't waste any words, Mandela. And I carried that into the film. I just carried that energy of that meeting into the film. And I was just so happy that I got to see him before the film. And then an aunt would show him certain scenes of the film and the images from the film while we were making the film. But just as I got to that point of finishing it, just before Christmas, we became too ill to watch the film, which was such a shame. But he's back home now and hopefully on the road to recovery.
Oh, fingers crossed. Well, we need to wrap things up, unfortunately, but I'll hopefully see you on the carpet this evening.
Yeah, brilliant. That'd be lovely. Nice one.